everybody. Welcome to Eden Fractal. We're here at our 91st meeting. I have the pleasure to be here with Abraham and Gudasol and Rosmari and Will T, who's joining for the first time, and Das and Eric and a special longtime friend, Fractal as well. So thanks everybody so much for joining. Thanks for being here. Hope that you're having a wonderful day. We're going to get into an agenda with some exciting topics such as strategy and perhaps a time chain as well. We were discussing, people were repping ETH Denver. People got back from Denver a couple weeks ago or a week ago or so. So Abraham was showing his shirt and Gudasol was showing, yes, 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 that's right. There we go with the buffercorn. And Gudasol was sharing, he had a cool sticker too. And there's Will too joining us from Kingfisher's Media, I believe it's called. He's got Denver shirts, so really cool to see all the regeneration going on. If anyone wants to say hello or anything like that, then feel free to share anything real quick. If not, then I can also just get into the presentation, then we can discuss afterwards as well. Okay, I suppose I'll go ahead. Nice to see all the good energy here. So welcome to Eden Fractal. If you're not familiar, you can check out edenfractal.com. I recently just gave the website a little update too, because we formed our mission, which I'll give a little introduction about. It's a very exciting news that we have here for Eden Fractal. If you're not familiar, Eden Fractal is a community that creates innovative games, shows, and tools. And we've been meeting for the past 91 weeks, or we took a couple breaks for a winter break at some point, but basically for almost 2 years straight now, every week. And we formed a vision about 2 or 3 months ago that we believe that all communities and organizations should have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making. Best, fair, and fun. And so we have a page where you can learn about that. We did a bunch of videos where we discussed this. And then last week we came to consensus about our mission that we're working to implement fractal decision-making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. And we also have a page I just put together there where you can learn more about our mission. I'll show you a little preview there. And like I said, we meet every week and we host these events where we optimize decision-making with these fun consensus games, these fun kind of fractal decision-making processes. So everyone's welcome to join to collaborate with talented innovators and learn these processes and tools and methods and help create the future of collective coordination, as well as participate in helping us make videos too and promoting your work on videos. So we produce every video of each week, and we have a YouTube channel, Eden Creators, and also edenfractal.com/videos where you can watch the videos. We try to produce and make them really nice. And we're also working with awesome developers like Gudasol too to build these tools so everybody can use them. Everybody's welcome to join. Our meetings are Wednesdays at 16 UTC, and feel free to reach out in our Telegram group chat as well, where you can get more involved. Rosemary's been putting out some really nice messages too on X and on Farcaster, so you can retweet and spread the word to learn more about it. Today we're probably going to talk a little bit about our strategy and how we get to achieve our mission and achieve the vision that we have set out. And yeah, you can check out lou.ma/Eden Fractal. Invite your friends. Every Wednesday at 16 UTC, we're meeting, and we now are also posting on Twitter about the mission and so forth. So encourage if you want to like and share and so forth, so you can get involved and help spread the word and help people make better decisions together. Because when everybody makes decisions better decisions, then we all do better off. So I mentioned before a couple times that we formed the mission, and I did just put together a quick page at edenfractal.com/mission, where you can see how we formed consensus about this mission. I made a little artwork there with the more equal animals homage, and then we have a bunch of videos in case anybody's interested in like diving into all the details. We've discussed our mission for probably 8 weeks or 8 events, so we're like really focused on the mission. And lots of people throughout Eden Fractal were like, "What is the mission? What is the mission?" And so it's very nice to finally have one. And if you can see, there's always kind of like an ambiguous mission, but now it's formally defined. And if you want to see how we came to consensus about this mission over the past year or two, then you can see all these videos starting back from our 29th meeting, our 38th meeting, and so forth. And then more recently with our 80th meetings and so forth, we came to consensus. We'll be producing these videos fully soon for the rest of them, but you can check out there, as well as our vision article and some recent talks and videos and so forth where we had discussed this more. And then we also have an article about how we came to consensus about our vision too. So if anyone wants to learn about the details in the background, then feel free, and you can watch all these videos on the Eden Creators YouTube channel, as well as the videos page on the Eden Fractal website. So what we usually do here at Eden Fractal is we play a consensus game called Cagendas. We have a little welcome page that's still in progress, but Cagendas is basically a social coordination game where we can vote with respect that we've earned in past respect games. And then voting with respect, we can choose what topics to discuss. And so can go into more detail about that, but basically we use an app that a community member and developer built named Consortium, where we vote on topics. And I just put up a topic real quick because we didn't have one on the schedule yet about timing and strategy. And I figure we can discuss our strategy to achieve this mission to help all communities and organizations to optimize decision making and so forth with collaborative research and everything like that. And also another topic that was kind of in there too is I figured it's helpful just to remind people daylight savings is happening now. So if you're in the United States or somewhere else where that went into effect, the time will change a little bit for the meetings. It might move back an hour or forward an hour. And then also on another related note, I asked if anybody has any thoughts about changing the time of weekly events to 17 UTC instead of 16 UTC. And I wrote a few different benefits that it's at the same time as the Optimism Fractal, which meets every Monday at 17 UTC, which makes it a bit easier to promote. And generally 17 UTC tends to work better for people in the Europe and America time zones because 16 UTC is often early. And then Rosmari also had another event, so she was wondering if we could change it. So be happy to discuss that. And then also on that note too about implementing fractal decision-making processes throughout society. I also want to give some notice. I don't know if I did this in recent episodes, but at Optimism Fractal, which we host on Mondays at 17 UTC, then we recently released videos where we implemented a fractal decision-making process with a community-led governance with the first ever Optimism Fractal Council. And so we've been publishing videos here, and that's going really great. It's a great place to get involved with these fractal decision-making processes, and you can RSVP for those events as well. Everybody's welcome to join. And once again, we really like to meet new people and share all the cool stuff we're doing here. So encourage you all to join the events and share with friends and so forth. And then, yeah, basically, we have 8 people here. So I don't know if we should do breakout rooms. There wasn't specifically a game that we had proposed, so we could just stay in one big breakout room, or we could discuss this more broadly, or like go into breakout rooms. So we could decide that, I suppose. But then I suppose one thing I see Will raise his hand, so I'll get to you in one moment. Will, thanks for raising your hand. But just one thing more to lead the discussion is if we do discuss strategy, if somebody has something different in your mind, then feel free to bring it up as well. If you have any questions, then we can just have kind of a relaxed conversation as well. Don't have to stick to the agenda too much. But if we do want to discuss the strategy, then we do have a Notion page for the Eden Fractal community where we've been discussing strategy and mission and so forth. And we have several different weeks of where we've discussed the strategy so far. We had a template where we were discussing what are our products, who are the consumers of the products, what's our go-to-market strategy and stuff like that. So I can share this in the Eden Fractal Telegram chat or in the Zoom chat so everybody can get involved there. And like we'd be happy to hear your thoughts. So I'll stop the screen share. That was a bit of a long presentation, but thank you so much for listening and hope you enjoyed. And we can get started. I see Will raise his hand. So Will, if you'd like to
I don't hear you. At least I don't.
You don't hear me or you don't hear Will?
Yeah, I just lost audio on Dan as well. I thought it was me.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry,
Yes.
it says my connection, internet connection is unstable, so my apologies for that. Hopefully you're able to hear it as I was giving the presentation.
Yes, we did.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, if you'd like to share your thoughts, ask any questions, or if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit and Kingfisher's Media for the Eden Fractal audience, we'd be happy to hear from you. I hear you're empowering regenerative education. If you have any questions that you want to share, anything like that, then I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to trade out my earbud here. But first off, my first question is being the new person in the room to this group, what are fractal decision-making processes? I'd love to learn more about that.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for the question, Will. Really appreciate it. So, fractal decision-making processes are, and I suppose we should probably like define this thoroughly because we did put it in the mission and we've been practicing them for about 3 years now. But it would be probably helpful to have somewhere in the mission where it says like a short, concise definition. And so I'm going to be kind of like winging this off the top of my head from what our experience is. Basically, practice decision-making processes are processes that are rooted in fractal governance, processes that are rooted in something that we call the respect game, which is normally what we do at every week at Optimism Fractal. There's been many other fractals too who have tried this. I know Gudasol has experimented with this in a community he hosts with Aqueduct, and Eric has hosted it in a community called the Art Fractal. Basically, the idea is, and like the core idea that brought us all together for Eden Fractal is we come to a Zoom room like this, or it can be an in-person room if it's a local community as well. And then rather than trying to make decisions as one big group where everybody's like trying to maybe make a proposal and everybody votes on the same thing or something like that, we break out into breakout groups or breakout rooms. And we do it with groups of 3 to 6 people. So it goes kind of like a fractal structure, kind of like how nature branches out into trees and leaves and branches and so forth. And so we go into breakout groups of 3 to 6 people. And then from there, we well, there's lots of opportunities. With the respect game, what we do is each person shares what they've been doing to help the community for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then after everybody goes and gets a chance to speak and share what they've done to help, then they'll work to reach consensus on who helped the most, who helped the second most, who helped the third most, fourth most, and so forth. And then from there, a respect soulbound token can be distributed, which helps community make decision and can form a council and so forth. Or also we have experimented with processes where in that breakout room, people elect a delegate or a leader or captain to help make decisions as well. So these are like some ideas of how fractal decision-making processes can work. And like the core idea is basically no matter how many people you have, whether you have a group of like 5 people, 20 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, a million people, then going into these smaller, more intimate kind of breakout groups and having discussions with smaller groups, and then from there working to reach consensus with some sort of like special game or special tool or method or process that allows the communities to derive consensus in this more like fractal structure. And of course, like Tadas, Eric, Rosmari, Abraham, Gudasol, like, and I think Patrick is Fractal. Like everybody here has been experimenting with these processes for many months and many years. So that's just kind of my kind of off the cuff explanation. So I hope that's helpful. Will, let me know if that's confusing or if there's anything that would be helpful to clarify. I'd also be happy to share the screen and provide some links to where you can read into it. I see Fractal Ball saying no, Fractal Ball is a ball. Okay, my mistake is a ball. But yeah, if anyone wants to maybe add to that or help make it clearer for Will, then we have to. Oh, I see Eric is raising his hand.
Yeah, fractal governance is designed to minimize a lot of the downsides of what you'd think of systems like standard democracy. It comes from the book No More Equal Animals by Dan Larimore. So the idea is that if you break up into small groups, you can minimize things like somebody taking control, the fact that people come in without a lot of knowledge of things. But fractals, duplicate at all levels. So the idea, if you stack with a small group, you keep stacking those. So what that means is it's not a case where everybody votes for the president and you just get the most vote. It's like whole voting blocks kind of stack up and they go where they want. So a whole voting block can be pulled out and have a bigger impact. So really it's breaking up into small groups and being able to stack those groups into bigger decision making, like city, county, state, national, like that. So that's basically the idea. And by going into small groups, you actually get to listen to everybody too and know each other, and you don't get parties saying, well, we're all going to vote in a block. That's why we randomize the groups, is so that we don't get these big voting blocks who decide before what their party does. So, it's like people over party. Hopefully that helps.
Appreciate it. No, that's great context. Thank you so much. Now I have a better understanding.
You're welcome. Thank you, Will, for asking. And thank you, Eric, for the great overview as well. Really appreciate that. Does anybody else want to go ahead and also answer? I mean, this is kind of our strategy a little bit too. It kind of works out well that Will is joining for the first time and asking these questions, because that's kind of what we're aiming to do, or at least what I proposed here. Like we figured our mission is now to implement these fractal decision-making processes throughout society. And we know that we want to do this through collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. And I think that Will is leading a community with Kingfishers Media. And I'm curious, Will, I was saying before, if you want to provide any more detail about that to introduce us, because I think that you're in quite aligned kind of work with empowering regenerative education. But this could be an opportunity for us to kind of like go through our strategy and figure out like how we can do that education part. Like how is the best way to explain fractal decision-making process? And I see Will's unmuted, but I also see Gudasol has his hand up too. So I think first we'll pass it to Gudasol, and then if Will, you want to answer that or provide more detail afterward, that would be awesome. And if anyone else wants to explain fractal decision-making processes in their mind or contribute to the discussion with the strategy, would very much appreciate as well. I'll pass on to Gudasol here. Gudasol, you're mute. I don't hear you again. No, I don't hear you. Okay, well, hopefully you can get that resolved. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe if you could just like toggle with your settings or something like that, and then we can pass it over. I see Will has his hand, so we can pass it back to Will. And then if you can get that fixed, just let us know whenever it's ready.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for the floor. I appreciate it. So just a little bit about me, my journey, and the focus of Kingfisher's Media. So I've been in the space, the blockchain ecosystem for, well, this month celebrates my 4-year anniversary on this journey. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've seen a lot of growth and maturity of the space. I've seen a lot of maturity on the dev side too, right? So the hypothesis that led us to launching Kingfisher's Media was simply this. So this is kind of the thesis behind the hypothesis, is that for the better part of the last decade, when we talk about regenerative education, it's educating people on regenerative practices, regenerative policies, regenerative initiatives that they can get involved in. We take that one step further and make the education itself regenerative by building a learning ecosystem and environment that's conducive to that. This comes from a concept that I had about 2 years ago called Reach One, Teach One. Simply put, if we can all just reach out to one person, download into them what we're knowledgeable about, that that they have an interest in, then that should be able to be replicated in the natural ecosystem, right? So that's the formation and the basis for Kingfisher's Media. What we've done around that hypothesis and thesis is that we've actually launched a company that embraces that environment. We have a live learning center where we have active members in there learning content about emerging technology and life skills, which that's the gap that we see through hundreds and hundreds of hours of conversations that the traditional education system is not currently filling right now. So yeah, we've been a company itself. This June will be 1 year since we formed the company. In May, it'll be 1 year since we established provenance on the Ethereum and the Polygon blockchains. We are becoming more expansive in the Optimism superchain model. So yeah, just great to connect with other builders and other creators and see what we can do to be helpful if we're able to.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Will. I see Fractal Ball is saying congrats, Will, and we got some claps from Eric too. So that all sounds great, and looking forward to learning more. If you want to share any links to Kingfisher's Media too, so people can check it out, then we'd be happy to look into that more closely. And it seems like we have lots of opportunities to collaborate with what you're doing with regenerative education. And I think that a lot of what we're doing, I'm quite sure actually that a lot of what we're doing with fractal decision-making processes is also very much aligned with your goals and very much aligned with helping to regenerate society as well. So looking forward to collaborate. I see also Gudasol said he got his mic fixed too, and then Eric raised his hand too. So I don't know who wants to go first. If you want to go first, Gudasol, or if Eric wants to go next.
Yeah, I'll go because I think Eric already shared. So I was referring back to the what I see as fractal governance and what I see as consensus games. I think it's really important to start off with so we are based on smart contracts that were written by Fractally. A big part, Eden, first of all, this is Eden Fractal, and a big part of Eden is social verification. So that's one very sort of powerful tool that's in this toolbox. And then once you have these socially verified people that have passed this rite of passage into the group, then you have that cohesion and you've declared a shared desire. So in order to get to that shared desire, we break off into these random groups, which are intentionally random, to sort of tap into the knowledge of the universe. And then that decision, whatever decision that you're making, and that's usually electing a representative, is only for that individual group. So the game of consensus in this context is initially picking that first person. So we're taking a larger social game, which would be an election where you can influence mass consciousness with various information dissemination mechanisms, to a very small social environment, which also has its own sort of social, game playing, so to speak, And, you know, it's not perfect either, but we're all operating under the hypothesis that this is a better system. So we're devoting our effort to sort of grow that system and push it forward. Also, I wanted to say, Kingfisher, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing and what sort of regen means to you. Doesn't have to be in this call. Don't want to get too distracted, but I'll definitely check out what you're doing. One thing we're doing with Tetra is we're doing learn to earn for permaculture, which is what I group permaculture under regeneration. And we have 2 courses live that people can take, and they can earn tokens for taking permaculture courses through our online learning platform there. So yeah, I'm super stoked to meet somebody else with a similar mission and similar platforms to what we're doing. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you, Gudasol, for sharing. Those links, maybe I'll pull up in a little bit, but you shared tetra.earth/learn, and then Will had also shared, what was it? It was kingfishersmedia.io. So maybe I'll bring that up. And then just as a general note too, a lot of times at Eden Fractal, when we have more than 6 people, then we do these kinds of Fractal breakout rooms. So if anybody does like want to do that, then feel free. But I figure also because Will's new and like just because we didn't have a game scheduled, and I feel like we have a decent sized group of 8 people. We could just stay in one room. But if anybody wants to change up the structure, then feel free as well, and we could try that out. Yeah, so there's a lot more I could say here, but maybe I see Eric and Will both have their hands up, so I'll pass it over to Eric first, and then yeah, if at some point Rosmari, Abraham, Tadas, and Patrick/Fractal Ball want to speak up at some point too, we'd love to hear from you. But on to you, Eric.
Yeah, so first of all, for Kingfisher's media, I'm a professor, and I'm a huge fan of acquisition of new methods for education. So I do learning design and all kinds of things. So good on that. Second of all, this last week I approached a large nonprofit to talk about what they're doing, and they're like, "Yeah, can we do this now?" So we've got this idea of why we do things. That's pretty important. And now we've gone into how we do them. So for me, the key is, so what can we offer? If we were to pull this off the shelf and I was to offer this 200-person nonprofit and say, here's what we have, and it wasn't ambiguous and fuzzy, it was clear, what are the products we're working on that I can actually go sell to real organizations? You know, if we put it off the shelf, what would it look like? What would the label be? What's inside the box? I think there's always things we know how to do, things we're learning how to do, and things we could learn how to do in the future. And I think from the strategy point of view, that's the key, is to get it down, is putting things in we can get people to act on. So that's my thoughts on where we go now, is nailing the what.
Great points. Thank you, Eric. On that note, Rosmari also shared in the Zoom chat Eden Fractal Strategy Notion page 2, where we were discussing the what, the products, the go-to-market, who we're going to collaborate with or focus on collaborating with first, and so forth. So happy to get into the what and see what everybody thinks about it. Also, I see Will has his hands up, so I suppose we can pass it over to Will and Will thinks.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I just want to respond to the compliments and the commentary. So thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the warm embrace welcoming in here. Whenever I join a new community, it's good to find these types of environments, because if you don't find that, you're probably not going to stay. But so Eric and Guda, thanks for the compliments as well, specifically back to you both, gentlemen. So one question I had, that Guda had outlined about the social verification. Are you guys using Gitcoin Passport for that currently? Is that something that could be used in the future, or are you guys using a different mechanism?
Yeah, so right now the main mechanism that we've been using. Oh, if you want to go ahead and answer that, Gudasol, then feel free. I see you just unmuted. But I was going to say, I'll go ahead.
Sure. So like, no, this is completely Antelope technology. So it's a C++ smart contract that's launched as part of this general system. It's completely not compatible with the EVM. It's completely its own system, and it does work with like basically a multi-sig. I believe I haven't looked at it in a while, but basically you have to have a meeting, and then you sign three people have to sign something that says, "Hey, we were in this meeting. This person has agreed to this rule." So no, it's not compatible with any other system as far as I know.
Thanks, Kudo. So yeah, so to provide some clarity, so the ideas of fractal decision-making processes started, as Gudasol said, in the Antelope network, which is started with EOS and Wax and Telos and several other different kinds of Web3 communities that were not using the EVM at all. And so the fractal decision-making like tool stack, it's built on several different networks right now. One is the Antelope network. Another is a network called Sync, which is created by the original developers and Dan Larimer's team. Eric had mentioned Dan Larimer wrote the book Mortal Animals, which is outlining these processes. And then a team of me, Tadas, Rosmari, and Vlad recently started Optimism Fractal. We started about 6 months ago. And for Optimism Fractal, or we started a team called Optimistics, and we started a community called Optimism Fractal, where we're pioneering these kinds of processes and using them every week. And for Optimism Fractal, we do have an EVM-based tool set, so it is compatible with Gitcoin Passport, I should say. And I'm very interested in Gitcoin Passport. Like I'm a huge fan of Gitcoin and everything that's going on. I got to meet Kevin Owocki at the ETH Denver event and met a bunch of people on the team, and they're doing amazing work. So I would love to collaborate with the Gitcoin Passport team. And it's something that we're definitely looking forward to doing in the future, like to have these kinds of different mechanisms, as Kevin Owocki would say, like a pluralistic kind of combination of verification for identity. Right now, the main verification for identity that we've been doing is just like person-to-person calls, like on Zoom, for example. And as Gudasol was saying, we have smart contracts built where people reach consensus and doing with on-chain transactions. And particularly like we have it where there's consensus processes where, say, if you have a group of 6 people in a breakout room, then 4 to 6 people need to agree to a certain consensus. And in order for that to happen, then the people need to be on the Zoom call and need to be sure that they're speaking with a person and so forth. So over time, we'll integrate other things like Gitcoin Passport as we're able to, and Ethereum attestation service as well as different kinds of attestation services on EVM, Antelope, and all around. And right now, it's mostly based upon just person-to-person video calls with on-chain attestations at events. I see Rosemary had raised her hand too. Rosemary, did you want to add anything or share something?
No, that's what I wanted to say, what you just covered about the submission online.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing. I see Gudasol saying that you guys had bridged the contracts to EVM. So yep, Tadas, it's not so much a bridge, but Tadas kind of rewrote the contracts, and he also gave them with some new designs to the EVM as well. So now there is fractal software on the EVM, and that's one of the main things we've been focusing on too, because EVM has a huge ecosystem of users and developers and so forth. So we're working on expanding the tool set there and have lots of exciting initiatives. And that's actually on the Optimism Fractal Notion page. We have lots of different projects there that are mostly devoted towards enhancing the EVM tool set. Fractal, I see Fractal was saying, Fractal sending a lot of respect to Eden Fractal, EOS EVM, very good. Great to hear. And Fractalgram too. Yeah, we have an app called Fractalgram that Tadas had built that allows it to be people to reach consensus in Telegram groups. And we've actually been experimenting with that in asynchronous respect games too, which is quite interesting. And then we're also working on a comprehensive Fractal app that people can do video calls without having to do Zoom calls as well with WebRTC technology. So lots of interesting stuff we're working on. I hope that clarifies and helps answer your question, Will. And yeah, if anybody wants to share any more thoughts about this, I mean, we're kind of having a pretty open discussion. If you'd like, if it's helpful for, I suppose, Will's sake or anybody else who's listening, then I could share some of the links where you can learn more. I could even screen share them. Like, for example, we have optimistics.io/respect game, where we're kind of like have a general overview of the main kind of fractal process that we are that we've been building for the past few years that I described before. And then if you were to go to, say, both Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal both have consensus processes that are derived from these kinds of breakout rooms, so I can share links there. And then for Gudasol too, I know that you mentioned you were mentioning that you weren't familiar with the EVM tools. So if you go to optimistics.io/tools, you can see an overview of the tools that we've deployed in the EVM as well as GitHub repositories too. I see that Will has raised his hand again. So Will, would you like to share some more thoughts?
A lot of questions because I'm new here and I'm trying to understand everything. One thing I forgot to mention, and Guda had said, you know, what does regen mean to you? So I was recently featured on Crypto Altruism's podcast that he and Teresa created around ETH Denver. So I think that's a great way to understand what regen means to me. So I'll see if I can find the link for that, and then you guys can go listen to it. And then if you have any additional questions, of course, we're on X, we're on Farcaster, we're on Lens, so you can get on our DMs. Or if you go to the website, signing up is complimentary. It issues you a pass that's going to allow you to access certain parts of our website, but there are parts of it that are token gated. But specific to that, we have an investor relations page, which does include a link to our Calendly. So if you want to get on our Calendly, that would be the best way to do it. And then we can have more one-on-one discussions.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, Will.
If you could put that in our Telegram chat, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. I think
absolutely. I need the link.
I just sent you the Telegram channel link.
Thank you, Rosmari. Yeah, I also just put that in there in the Zoom chat too. That's t.me/Eden Fractal. And yeah, we'd love to dig into those. Perhaps it might be helpful if I share my screen, because there's been several different links that we discussed, so I could share it and just show everybody a bit of Will's work so you can visualize it for anybody out there watching, as well as I could share what Gudasol shared and some stuff I was sharing too. But also, I don't want to speak too much as well. So if anybody else wants to has anything else in their mind, then happy to save that for later. Does anybody have anything you want to share, or anything you want to like discuss or bring up, or maybe should I go ahead and share this?
I did want to let Will know that my big passion is rolling this out so it becomes ubiquitous for everybody, no matter what they're doing. So I'm trying to make toeholds into people. So for me, what's important is what we come up with eventually can link into anything, including no blockchain. To start, because you know, if I get a bunch of avocado growers and say, all right, we're all going to go to blockchain, they're just going to look at me. And by the way, I won a hackathon last week, mainly because I went to go talk to the avocado grower. One of them a judge, so I said, this is a good way to know him. I didn't expect to win, but we did. But now they want us to present to the city council. So that's what I mean. I'm creating these vehicles that I can use to bring this stuff in. But the big thing for me is having products, clear, easy to use products that I can tweak this out, hopefully without telling them it's fractal governance. Just, oh, here's a really cool thing we need to do, and oh, here's an easy way to do it. And that's how I view that rolling out in that world.
Yeah,
if I can respond to Eric's commentary real quick. So at ETH Denver, I was part of a very special experience called Edge City, and what you're talking about, Eric, doing it with or without blockchain, is very reminiscent to what Kevin Owocki was talking about the quadratic funding model and how that can be used. You just strip the cryptocurrency out of the model, but it can still be used as a form of crowdsourcing funds in the fiat world. And they already had a test case for that back in 2020 when COVID broke out in Boulder. They saved 2 businesses using the quadratic funding model. So I'm a big fan of how can we take these applications that we're developing in this blockchain ecosystem and then replicate them out in the real world, but they don't necessarily have the overarching implications of being tied to a blockchain. So kudos for you on that, good sir.
Yeah, and also I'm the group that I'm with, I Value Global. We just published a book called Nonprofit Digital Transformation Demystified, where we're helping people make it clear how to add, amplify their mission by turning their mission into discrete, measurable digital goals that can be done piece by piece and with the resources they have. So why is that important? Well, as we talk about digital transformation, I'm looking at having these discussions starting with nonprofits and sliding these things in there, but not based on, ooh, here's technology. Because what we do is we start with their mission. We're able to take that mission and turn that into specific digital goals. So for me, it's like, oh, you want more engagement with your people. You want to coordinate your team. I've got like 12 parameters that I can say, if you want this, here's a tweak that we can do in the next 90 days, something like that. So think about other discussions we can have with people. Because starting the discussion of, would you like fractal governance, yes or no, is not a good discussion for most people. Not that it's not a bad one, they just don't understand it. And we've thrown a bunch of bugs on the window that they're going to focus on before we can get to talk about the real need of, you have a problem, we understand your problem, we'd love to help.
Yeah, it's really nice to have something you can click through when you're doing that. I worked for about 10 years as a consultant, and we would go to various, pitches and stuff, and people would hire us to build little POCs and end up, sometimes the POCs turned into multi-million-dollar projects and sometimes they didn't. But I know there's a bunch of different kind of tools that you can use to do that. Eric, do you know what specifically you're looking for? Are you looking for like a mock, or are you looking for a real website, or not sure?
None of that. What we're looking for is the right technology. So most people who start with technology. We start with mission. So we define their mission, and then we have several tools that map that into their digital maturity. And then we have tools that map that into tool and trends. So if you get, their mission, tools, and trends, that intersection, that's where we live. So our job is just to say, in your strategy, you said you want increased engagement of donors, and we map that to whatever that is. So it could be anything. It could be AI. It could be a web page. It could be a web app. It could be a mobile app. It could be any of that. So our job is not to say, oh, we have this website technology, use it. Our job is to say, how can we turn your mission into a project? And of course, blockchain is one of those tools. Metaverse is one of those tools, AI, but so is everything else from CRMs or ERPs or donor tracking, any of that. And that includes, so the critical thing we're doing is actually mapping the social, the ethical, and the security, safety issues as we roll these out, because a lot of them don't have technical people. They don't understand any of this. So our job is to say, here's a project you could do. You could implement a CRM or a mobile app, and hopefully our Fractal app, if I have one. And what's nice about that to me is, in order to make our app go, if we're talking about a Fractal app, then I can have a discussion on digital transformation, because part of making that Fractal app work is them building a digital culture. And so that's one of the problems, is you can't dump technology on them and expect it to go if you don't change how people think and act. But our deal is, you don't do that by saying go from 0 to 100. You do that by saying, we go through different digital maturity levels in different areas. And we map where they are, and then we map where they're going, and then we can say, move this piece from here to there. And that gives me an opportunity to slide in this app, if I have one that's easy to put in. Watch these videos, do this app, hire us as consultants, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Step-by-step, iterative, that can be done based on their mission, their ethics, and the resources they have.
Yeah, that sounds yeah, that sounds like a very consulting kind of mindset, which is cool. I'm working with another group called Unbound Science that I met up with at ETH Denver, and one of the things that they're trying to solve is the peer review process being a little, in need of update. And they're thinking about trying to implement fractal decision making and voting weights and participation. And so they're also trying to design basically a meeting and decisioning app. And I'm seeing some parallels there and trying to figure out how we can sort of not all do parallel tracks building the same thing, but collaborate in ways that can, build pieces of the same implementation ultimately.
And something I think is important to realize is right now, we don't have the decision-making process down. We have lots of things we've learned and lots of practices, but we can't show up and say, let's implement your decision making, because right now, we could do this, or we could do that, or how about this? Let's use these collection of tools. So one thing we're really good at is building culture and communication and respect and trust within teams. That's what we've been practicing really good for 2 years. So if we had a neat tool to do that, we can promise that in our spectrum. So that's the thing we know how to do. What we're working to do is saying, well, then how do you roll this into decision making?
Yep. Good points all around. And I should also mention too, we have conversation between Eric and Abraham, two recent hackathon winners, or at least like top 2 place winners too. So congrats to both of you. And then Abraham's been building, I don't know if we discussed it. I don't think we discussed it previously here at Eden Fractal, but Abraham's been building a decentralized science app that I don't know if you want to explain it in more detail, feel free, but it has a lot of kind of interesting synergies where what we're doing with the respect game could help increase the effectiveness of science, basically.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a lot of problems that they're trying to solve. One of them is just trying to provide funding to smaller science communities or scientists themselves, and also to help them to lock in their intellectual property and get royalties based off of their invention rather than the research kind of being published and then getting used by a larger entity and sort of used for not for the benefit of all. The part that's most relevant to what we're talking about is the consensus mechanism. So peer review obviously is a whole bunch of people who are subject matter experts in a particular area. They would go through someone's paper and try to decide whether it's relevant or not, or whether it makes false claims. Everybody knows that, but the thing that this Unbound Science effort is trying to do is to randomize some of the peer reviewers so that we can have a more holistic approach to peer review, and also trying to allow people to make attestations about the specific claims that they're making about these peer-reviewed items. So I think that's kind of the bulk of it, but it is a large it is a big piece of work to bite off, and I think trying to tackle the consensus mechanism first is probably the direction we're going to go, because that consensus mechanism, if we can make it available, even outside of this application, it could be really useful. It could also kind of push forward a lot of different efforts that are being made. It seems like this idea is really taking off in a lot of different places, and the more that we can get like an open source thing that people can build on, seems like a really good direction.
Yep. I absolutely agree. And the app that you built a front end for it, and it looks super helpful from where it started. And I heard you're going to be continuing to build it too. And so I'd love to help provide that kind of like core platform like that open source software with the respect game that you can take and then use for different purposes. Actually, just yesterday I met with one of the founders of Hats Protocol, and he had suggested this is kind of like a side note that I figured I could just tell you about real quickly, Abraham. But
Yeah, please.
with Hats Protocol, you can set up hats for different roles. People get like an NFT basically, and so I know you're talking about how you could have breakout rooms with people doing like have a lead developer in the room, or like a front end developer and a back end developer and a business dev and stuff like that, different roles. So you could have different roles going to different breakout rooms basically, and randomize that with the Hats protocol. So we'd love to build this kind of like basically like the core infrastructure, like the backend tools and technology to enable this that anybody can build with it. And for example, integrate it into the Science Unbounded application, and then also like brand it in ways that are very easily accessible for people who just want to, for example, help their local community of avocado farmers and stuff like that. And they don't really want to get into the tools technology. They just want to have something that works really well to make decisions better, in addition to building culture and building respect and so forth. And so the more we can do both of these things, build a product and building a tool set, then the better off we'll be to achieve our mission, basically, to help implement these decision-making processes throughout society.
Yeah, it seems like...
working on my dissertation and reading crap loads of papers every day. Of course, I'm a real fan of that, especially on the distribution piece, because it costs a fortune to access this information. So that kind of distribution thing would be good. But part of the deal is we know how to get people, we know how to vote for people. But when it comes from ideas, you brought up a very important point, which is idea prep. You have to have the right question. What are we talking about? One of the weaknesses, people saying, should we give Abraham a raise? Yes or no? Well, what's the issue really? Why are we giving Abraham a raise? Is it because we want to stick with him? Well, maybe there are other things. So what's the right question? So I think you could add a lot of input in how do we get the question right? Because that's the part that we're weak on right now, is we just kind of throw things and we know how to vote and rank them, and that's pretty good. And some things are pretty clear, are binary. But a lot of questions aren't binary. How do we maximize this? That is not a yes or no vote go question.
So you're saying, how do we integrate that kind of logic into the consensus mechanism?
Yes, into bringing the question up. There needs to be prep work if you're going to ask a bunch of people, many of which have no knowledge. Like, let's say we're trying to talk about right now on which technology do we use. Does everybody understand technology for that technology? So how do you properly, prepare a question so that everybody can go? And not everybody has to be an expert. I just have to be able to trust you. Oh, well, I'm going to go with what Abraham says because he knows that stuff. Or, Gudasol and Abraham and Eric know about education. So, so it's not necessarily that we have to teach everybody about everything. We just need to give them. And part of the consensus part is, okay, I know all these people in the room. We've met with them, and I have trust that Dan is really good at video. And if you want music, Dan and Rosmari. And if I, want to talk about personal development, Gudasol. And so that's one of the parts of this process, is to build the trust and respect of people and what they're good at. So when we vote, we go, okay, trust what they say, as opposed to a politician who can come up, you get a George Santos, you can't trust anything. So you have to know that.
Well, it goes back to that Gitcoin idea too, where I love the fact that they're taking various different pieces of social media accounts and logins just to prove that it's not just one person saying that, Eric knows what he's talking about. It's a whole group of people that have attested to the fact that Eric is an expert in, marketing or whatever the,
Yep.
Yeah. And it's got to minimize the impact of people just somebody says something and jumping on board. If you're going to make a statement like, oh yeah, the election was rigged. Okay, why do you believe that? Well, because this person said it, we all follow them. That's part of, is it or not? Well, let's talk to people who know about elections and voting. That should be not. So part of what fractal governance does is it minimizes this effect of people just saying stuff, and it just spreads like wildfire, and before you know that, we've got the angry mob storming the castle.
Yeah, we do have that problem now.
Yeah, we need to
Well,
resolve the.
we've always had that problem. It's just aligned, and it's aligned with, in our case, with 3 branches of government. So, but we've always had angry mobs. That's been going on forever. And
Yes.
and if it's funny, if you go back to colonial Williamsburg, you know, you go to Williamsburg and they still have that colonial, and you see the same crap. You see people lying. The big difference there is, if I was going to you know, lie about TDOS, it would take like 2 weeks for those people to even know the lie. I mean, the speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before
Now
people could
like,
publish and say, no, Eric's full of crap. You know, that stuff you're saying is a complete lie.
Yeah, and now it's time to build the tools and methods and processes and games and so forth to solve these age-old problems and help people cooperate and stop people from wanting to go on angry mobs, and enable communities and organizations to make decisions more fairly, more quickly, and more fun. I see Fractal said you can't lie about TDOS Firmament Ball. TDOS has been building Firmament, another tool to help people cooperate with these fractal decision-making processes as well. We're about 5 minutes, or less than 5 minutes from the top of the hour, so I want to start to wrap it up. We could go a bit longer if everybody wants, but also want to be respectful of everybody's time too. Haven't heard much from everybody, so if, for example, Das or Rosmari or Fractal Ball wanted to say anything, then feel free, of course. I know Fractal Ball's been sharing a lot of good comments, as well as Rosmari too. Perhaps I'll go ahead and share a little presentation that can kind of give a little overview of some topics we've discussed today, as well as maybe try to like wrap it up and put some context around it too that we can take with us for next week's meetings. Yeah, if anybody else wants to share anything before I go ahead with this presentation, then feel free to jump in, and I'll give it a moment. If not, I'll just go ahead. Okay, cool. Well, I'll be pretty quick. I'll just be a couple minutes, so then we can have a bit of time to discuss afterwards too, if anybody gets inspired to share anything, and it'll give you a bit of time to think about it. So yeah, this has been an awesome discussion. Thanks so much, Abraham and Eric and everybody who's contributed to discussion, and Will and Gudasol and everybody. And so our mission, we defined it last week and over the past 2 years, just about as that our mission is to implement fractal decision-making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. And I think a lot of stuff we've been talking about here has been kind of like circling around the mission, how to like define it, or how to actually make that happen, like in like these kind of real world use cases that we have. And so I wanted to share some links that we've just been discussing here, kind of like promoting everybody's work, but then also kind of trying to weave it into kind of a story, and then a little overview to about where we're at with that mission too. So I mentioned before to Will that one of the main things that we're focusing on, and this is what Eric says, that it's really great at, it provides a primitive for decision making. It provides a foundation for decision making, but it's also really good at like building culture and having people hear each other out and so forth. But there needs to be more as well. And this is the respect game. This is where we go into breakout rooms. I could share the link here, but this is where if you want to learn more about like our core decision-making processes, we've had different names for it. At the beginning, we called it the fractal process and different names, but overall, the respect game seems to work quite well. And that's one of the things about how do we explain it. Like Eric said, you don't want to necessarily have to explain fractal decision-making processes to everybody, because you might lose people, or people might just be confused. But I think when we identify it as a game and call it a game, then like people can enjoy the playing of it and understand it better. There's a couple of video tutorials here where Optimystics teams go through it here as well. And we have like some videos with the tools and then some benefits and the exact like overview of how to play it and stuff like that. So encourage anybody, if you're not familiar with Respect Game, that's a great place to start and to explain to friends and family and so forth how you can explain it. Eric also mentioned how like it would be helpful to have different games for starting to form consensus and like picking like how to rank like what the best questions are. And we did experiment this. So for example, in edenfractal.com/vision, where we discuss our vision, we have a whole bunch of videos here where we came to consensus about this, where we discussed what is our vision. And it's kind of difficult when you have like a bunch of people with different ideas in mind. So we had all these videos like discussing what should our vision be and so forth. And we experimented with these different kinds of games as well. There were variants of the respect game as well as other kinds of consensus processing games that allowed people to upvote different ideas and then come to consensus what the best questions are. So I think this is also something that's worth exploring. And what I think we're aiming to do is basically release a set of products that allow people to play the respect game and other kinds of games or other kinds of processes, depending on however they want to call it, that help people reach consensus. And then and added to that too, like build things that people can do from the respect game. Like what can you do with respect from there? And for example, at Optimism Fractal, we recently implemented a council where people who have the most respect can vote on decisions. And we made some videos here about Optimism Fractal, about the council formation and doing polls with respect. So like we do have some foundations set out, and we have, for example, at Optimism Fractal, we have a consensus process that Tadas defined that is like quite concise, and it can really help people make decisions. But we need to brand this and figure out ways to explain it in the ways that are most helpful for communities. And we also have some other different kinds of processes too. Like for example, there's another one that Tadas wrote up that we called Eden plus Fractal at the time, where and we have something called Eden elections where people can vote in processes. So just like to provide some resources to get people thinking. If you're not familiar with these things, we have ways that people can have these kinds of fractal decision-making processes where they elect leaders and so forth. But I agree with Eric's point that we need to get better at these processes. I know we're at time now, so if anyone needs to go, then feel free. I'll try to be quick and just wrap up my presentation in a minute. But yeah, basically that's where we're at. We're trying to figure out the best strategy to bring this to all society and all communities. And I suppose in maybe future weeks, we can talk more about what exactly are our products and how will we bring them to consumers and what are our target markets and go-to-market strategy. Looking forward to that. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Will. Thanks so much for joining, Will, and sharing your thoughts. And all the work you've been doing with Kingfisher's Media sounds awesome. I'm pulling up the website now, kingfishersmedia.io, and you can learn about how they're working to inspire, excite, educate, and motivate people to support the regeneration of knowledge, as well as you can find the links here. So really cool stuff. I also met Will, or I saw Will speaking at the Public Goods Network and the Let's Grow calls too. So there's a big community of people who are working to do these kinds of things, as you can see with kinds of memberships and partnerships that Will has going on. So encourage people to get involved with the regen movement and help out, as well as with all the great stuff that Abraham's been doing in decentralized science and Eric's been doing with agriculture. Also wanted to give a shout out to Gudasol too. He's working on Tetra.earth and cultivating culture, connecting humans and building a transparent economy. So Gudasol is doing really great stuff and recommend check it out. And here are the permaculture things that he's working on, the courses. I think permaculture is really important too. We need to not just get better at like consensus online, but also bring it to real life, like Eric is doing too. And then yeah, you can check out the tools that we've been building on the EVM here at optimistics.io/tools, and there you can find articles about both the EVM toolset and the Antelope toolset too. There's some videos where you can learn more. And yeah, there's also several other community organizations like Fractally and Sync who have been working on these kinds of things too. So just to pull out some different ideas and different places where people can dig into the history if you want. And we're working on that Fractal app. And Patrick, or I'm sorry, Fractal Ball was sharing some ideas about, or he's sharing actually the Upscale community's made a lot of progress, and they have an app deployed on the Antelope network, which we're aiming to deploy on EVM as well, where people can sign up for elections and do this all on chain and stuff like that. And we have an article I recently updated about the app that we've been working to build, where you can see some demos and stuff like that. For example, an all-in-one consensus building app that the Sync team demoed here. So lots of cool stuff that we're developing. We're going to figure out how to basically build this into a product and so forth. And a great way to do that is join the Eden Fractal meetings every week. We'll be discussing things like that, and everybody can propose topics. If you have anything on your mind that you want to discuss, then feel free to propose it in the Telegram group, and also invite friends. And anything that's related to helping people make better decisions, especially with fractal decision-making process, is very welcome, and love to hear from new people. And then we're also practicing this every week at Optimism Fractal. That's Thursday at 17 UTC, and Eden Fractal is every Wednesday at 16 UTC. My apologies for going a couple minutes over time here. I'll try to be more punctual in the future, but we can wrap it up anytime. Does anybody have anything else you want to share? I'm happy to stick around a bit longer too. I'm not trying to rush it off because I know this has been an awesome discussion. But like I said, just want to respect everyone's time. So what do you think? Should we wrap it up? Anybody have any last thoughts you want to share, or anything else you want to that you have on your mind? I see Dadas said have to go. Thanks everyone for the meeting, and thanks Fractal Ball for the kind words in the chat. Really appreciate that. I see Fractal Ball saying wrap it up. Wrap up, wrap up, wrap up. All right. I think we're ready to go. I'll give it one last time if anybody has any last closing words. If not, then we can wrap it up with a go Eden Fractal. And I think we're good. Rosemary, you unmuted. You ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks everybody so much. I really appreciate the awesome discussion. I see Gudasol's unmuted too. So any last words, then feel free. I see Will's putting up the hands up. Oh, start wrapping this up. I'll start getting us to sign up so everybody can get going with their day. Thanks everybody so much for the awesome meeting, and really excited to collaborate with you on this mission, and really excited about all the things we're doing. I'll count down 3, 2, 1, then we can say go Eden Fractal. 3, 2, 1, 0.
0.
Go
Eden
Eden Fractal!
Go Fractal Ball!
That's right. Go Fractal Ball too. All right. Thanks everybody so much, and see you next week. Gudasol's doing the dance. See y'all.
Peace, guys. See you soon.
See ya.